Welcome to a different perspective or civil commentary. Meh. I go meh because, it is priority, but lately I have been intentionally going onto Twitter and just, engaging in not necessarily mudslinging. I always stick to the points I'm trying to make, but I'm trying to get a little bit more aggressive with some of the tweets that I have intentionally because I think there's different ways to communicate with different demographics. Like people that are further on the right, they they just go right to the insults and direct just criticisms of like what they think about you based on all the stereotypes. And being a leftist, you're probably going to get seen as someone that trivializes small issues. You're a snowflake. You're playing the victim card. That kind of behavior, and which you're pretty wrong if that's what you think when you talk to me, because I'm one of those kind of people that, I don't consider myself a professional with everything I discuss with people when it comes to politics, but, I do my due diligence and I'm pretty confident when I have to, go on social media. It's not something that's going to really intimidate me when somebody wants to confront me directly. I mean, that's what I do. And it's what I like to do, not out of ego, but as a need to normalize that kind of conversation and hold each other accountable. And I put myself in that, bank. I want to be held accountable as well. I mean, I have no problem being wrong. That just goes to show that you're learning. And that's fine with me. But a lot of people are not used to having that kind of accountability put upon them because they're in echo chambers. So, my political activism is to do the basic kind of outreach, and that's to talk to people, to normalize that so we could do some critical thinking and just explore each other's politics. And when you have social media access to that and you have the resources to do something like I'm doing right now, it's worthwhile to have an effort to communicate with people, to have them articulate why they think the way they think so we could come up with some solutions to solve a lot of the problems in our country. So I'm rambling here, but I just wanted to go ahead and let you know why I'm doing all the aggressive tactics on Twitter, because I want to give you some content. I plan to have a political panel, and if you're interested and if you're available from August 3rd through the 6th, we can make it happen. And we have a couple of days that are just tossed out there so people could funnel around which day is more convenient, and then we could hopefully all agree on one day because it'll be a one-day event. And the topics of discussion would be discussing good arguments, addressing toxic online behavior, and TBA to be announced if you have any suggestions of what you would like to discuss. That hints me tweeting all the stuff. You might agree or disagree, or you want to elaborate more on any particular tweet that I put out there. That's why I'm doing it. I'm pretty strategic. And some people are probably thinking, wow, that doesn't really sound like civil. So what's up with him? That's why I do it. So you can go ahead and use that to say, hey, I agree or disagree. I want to talk to him. It's to lure you in. I'm pretty transparent with what I'm about. So let's go ahead and switch to the main focus of this video. Zuby is somebody that I've noticed from the people I follow. And like I said, one of the demographics that I really focus on are centrists, because they're usually they're the demographic that'll lend me their ear. Right wingers, they usually just erase their their messages they have toward me, block me, and they don't really engage. They just toss some insults, say, I bet you don't know what it is to serve. I'm like, well, actually I do. And then they just feel goofy and then they just start erasing all the stuff all the mean things they said. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I would get the respect. I mean, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I would be very respectful for anybody on the right that would choose to engage with me on the interview, because it takes guts. I mean, it wasn't easy for me when I first started it. So I understand that. And I also apply that same understanding with people that are centrists and moderates. But let's go ahead and discuss what we got for Zuby. You know what? Zuby is somebody that's a smooth talking guy, man. But I just don't think he's a big ally for centrists. And I want to make that case. I want to make a coherent, simple, factual, and provide evidence. Zuby likes to seem like we need to engage with each other. And that's what he's going to say in his speech. But then he'll be very hypocritical, I mean, based on what he said back in 2019. The main reason I've done more right-wing media than left-wing media is because left-wing media rarely invite people outside their narrow ideological confines. And this is not true. A lot of the content creators that I listen to on YouTube love to discuss politics with people that do not align with them. So he's absolutely just playing on your ignorance with that comment. A lot of the content creators I listen to have over 1 million viewers. So it's not like something that he can't just say, I didn't know anything about that. If he really just gave a Google search, he would be able to find some good faith debate bros from the left. In other words, conservative media is more liberal than liberal media. I'm not the first to notice this. Well, I disagree. I mean, Dave Rubin, a lot of these guys got called out by Joe Rogan. Tim Pool, I mean, he had some left-wing guests like Vosh, which, Vosh is okay, but Vosh did a really good job of exposing Tim Pool. Matt Walsh, he's very strategic of who he talks with as well. So, come on, Matt Gaetz. And Zuby is like very against trans culture, and I would assume grooming aligns with that. And he has Matt Gaetz on there, of all people. And RT, they're a Russian-based media. They're considerably conservative, I would assume, because they're state-owned. And, you got your buddy Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson. It likes to try to be so masculine, but he's just a skinny, wimpy-looking dude. And I'm just like, I eat meat. Well, there's more to it to look macho. You can't just say you eat meat, man. That's just not gonna make you a Rambo. But anyways, Jordan Peterson's a weird dude. He's intelligent, but still he's weird. And what I mean by weird, disingenuous. So I can make some decent points of how he is disingenuous. But I'm not here to talk about Jordan Peterson. We're here to talk about Zuby. So I'm looking for which button I want to utilize right now. And I do not think, no, that's not it. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. I want to be objective with Zuby because, what does he do? What is the content that he makes on his YouTube channel? Because it's just one thing to, accuse somebody. But as a leftist, I want you guys to see the perspective of like how I get an opinion of somebody if, I look at their content. Am I going to think, just based on the pictures I saw, are they making an honest effort? I mean, he's pushing financial pro-life generation, uncommunist manifesto. He likes to talk to psychologists a lot. And why is the bar of courage so low in our society? I mean, that's pretty broad. I mean, he's not really showing how brave he is by talking to people that would challenge his rhetoric and his beliefs. And then you can see Matt Walsh that was there and some more wealth conversations. I mean, I'm just really interested in the patterns that I see with conservatives and, centrists and moderates. I see a lot of Bitcoin and I see a lot of self-help and fitness. And it's just really interesting. I don't really see that with Sam Seed or Vosh or Destiny so much, but it's a big theme with y'all. It really is. And, I run often. I didn't get to run my 4 miles today, so I'm a little bit, I stayed up late trying to edit this video that didn't load. So I'm having to do it again. A New Hope for Canada. It's just identity politics. The chicks on the right. I mean, it's just, how can you take someone serious for being an advocate of change if all you do is talk to like-minded people? That's really confusing to me. So, that's my objective criticism of just having a first impression of this person. I mean, he was transparent back in 2019 saying, I do just talk to nothing but right-wingers, but that's going to go against what he's going to say in this speech because he wants to brainwash the young people to do the work for him, and he doesn't do it himself. So, it's work, and it's not easy. I mean, he has his image he wants to maintain to make money. He wants people to buy his albums. That's why he doesn't want to offend so many people. He wants you to buy his merchandise. That's why he doesn't want to offend people. He wants you to purchase his speaking engagements. That's why he doesn't want to offend anyone. So he's more of an entertainer and a person that spits out platitudes and flowery language because people will buy into that. I mean, he's trying to sell you something and an image. He's not trying to question anybody's authority other than what he is with the weaker demographics. So anyway, so let me just go ahead and start this video. I can go off on like, yeah, I'm not buying it kind of rhetoric. So let's go and start the Zuby conference. All right, I push play. Here we go.
How you guys doing? Right. It is my privilege to introduce our next speaker, Zuby. Yeah. Zuby is more than just a rapper. He is an inspirational public figure and influential voice, whose unique perspective, authenticity, and positive energy have earned him more than 1 million followers on social media and 20 million plus online video views. Zuby has caught the attention of some of the most popular media personalities in the world, appearing on the Joe Rogan Experience,
Moderate,
the Adam Carolla Show, the
right
Glenn
wing,
Beck Podcast,
conservative,
and the Ben Shapiro Show,
conservative, right wingers,
as well as mainstream news outlets such as Fox News,
Fox.
BBC, and Sky News.
Sky News is
As
an
musician,
affiliate, or it was,
author,
of
podcaster,
Fox.
public
And
speaker,
BBC,
fitness
according to
expert,
some
and life
articles,
coach,
is right-leaning.
Zuby doesn't shy away from expressing himself with a refreshing and compelling level of honesty. Zuby was born in England and raised in Saudi Arabia, where he attended an
Born in Saudi Arabia. I mean, there's some religious fanatics in Saudi Arabia. And, you know, I'm not trying to judge or generalize, but it doesn't even rank in the Freedom Index, you know, that you could reference online, which we will talk about that. But, you know, I just really don't think he's getting portrayed as an honest actor. I strongly disagree with that. If you are honest, you would definitely want to promote your ideology to people that would challenge it. He does not do that very often, and he said it himself. But he's going to say something differently because he wants
While
other
studying
people to
computer
do it.
science at Oxford University, he started rapping and within months self-released his first album, Commercial Underground. Since then, he has created his own successful merchandise line, reached number 12 on the iTunes
All right,
hip
let's
hop
go ahead
chart,
and skip.
and self-released 6 albums.
But I think we are actually dealing with a concept which I call moral polarization.
And one of the things, you can go ahead and search my Twitter conversations. I mean, I hate how I talk on Twitter. I mean, it's very hard to communicate on Twitter. But I always try to take the moral high ground away from right-wingers. They love to claim it. And that's what he's talking about. The moral, I forgot what was his definition. Oh, the moral polarization. So let's go ahead and hear his interpretation of the moral high ground.
Where people are actually acting not just on different opinions and ideas about the same facts, but where it seems like people are actually operating off of different facts themselves and very fundamentally different moralities.
I have no idea what he just said. I mean, it's like I have some acquaintances on Twitter, and I'm not really big in philosophy. I like KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That's how I like it. As a left-leaning person, I reference data. There's not like up and down confusion of my beliefs. I could reference that through history. I can reference it through data, like I said. And I could reference it from my personal experiences as well. So it's not being hyperbolic or not knowing my truths or whatever. It's talking about policy. And if you talk to most people that are on the left, you know, pretty much like that mirror my politics, we're going to be able to articulate what we want. It's not going to be something that's going to be muddied. It's not going to be something that it's going to be abstract. It's going to be pretty specific, and it's going to be based on data. So let's go ahead and hear what else he has to say, because right now I'm just like, I have a background in sociology, so we do reference a lot of holistic data.
Now, the USA is an amazing country, and it's also a very new country. I often say that this is a
He's talking to college students. They know American history, especially if they're conservatives.
The country as it is has only been around for fewer than 250 years. The college I went to in the UK is 700 years older than the United States of America itself. As they say in the UK, people think that 300 miles is a long distance, and in the USA, people think 300 years is a very long time. Now, this is important because in the US, I mean, the U is very important. The U stands for united. And for a country to be able to hold together, people need to share some fundamental basis of morality.
And this is where I'm going to go ahead and argue with his little flowery language. United. We are united. There's so many parts of our country that's very united. We all agree on a certain expectation for having a democracy, a healthy democracy. Are there questionable issues about that? Yeah, we have some checks and balances to make sure they're secure. And I'll give you two examples to be fair. There was a lot of issues with the Democratic primary with Bernie Sanders in the last primary, especially in Iowa. So, yeah, there was some shady business, but it ultimately came down to some other states that overwhelmingly voted for Biden. And there was some other crooked, shady, things that happened. It wasn't necessarily with how people were voting. It was just like the establishment finally united by pulling out and having other people endorsing Biden. And too many people fell for those dirty tricks. And now we have the worst polling president in U.S. history. Thank you, Biden primary voters. But on the other hand, we have like Trump, the issue with him on January 6th. A lot of conservative judges that were appointed by Trump himself, they didn't approve of what he thought the election should be. I mean, you can't get any more accountable for fair elections if your own party members and conservative like-minded ideologues are saying, yeah, we don't see anything wrong. I think there were some fringe cases that were based on speculation that were like saying, oh yeah, there's might be something fishy. And there was like something that happened in Arizona that they got it recounted and it ended up Biden won by even bigger margins. It was just a goofy spoof of just trying to push a false narrative. People agree on so many things. If you want to reference where we agree on, you can look at policy with infrastructure. I was agreeing with Donald Trump. I was like, hey, he's a developer. He's talking about infrastructure. I like that. There might be a silver lining in his presidency, other than just him being a crazy maniac and a failed businessman in so many levels. But you know what? Maybe being a president might give him some pull and it might make his ego feel good if he gets some infrastructure done. So that was one thing that I agree with. And also he was like anti-interventionalist. But was he really? I mean, he almost got us in war with North Korea. He assassinated some general. So he escalated a lot. Just got really lucky that it didn't end up being something worse than it could have been. So he was by no means a peaceful dude when it came to international relations. A lot of people say, well, he brought peace with North Korea, but he also escalated it too. So that kind of cancels it out. And, Joe Biden said what you want. It was probably a little bit sloppy, but he pulled us out of Afghanistan. But now we're in Ukraine. So there's a debate to have with that as well. And there's a lot of areas where I'm not really considered a foreign policy expert. But back to Zuby. You know what? There's a lot of agreement within Americans. We want to address the high rate of incarceration. We want to go ahead and negotiate the prices of meds. We want to make sure we attack the bogus laws of marijuana. I mean, there's so many areas we do agree on, but it's not in his best interest to, talk about solutions because you get more clicks when you talk about divisive topics. And his grift is to be smooth, flowery, positive, and with no solutions. So let's go ahead and continue to watch.
Fundamental basic of ethics. And this is something that was clear in the past, and yes, it's taken a long time for this nation and many others to achieve a true equal standard under the law and for people to treat each other equally and fairly.
He didn't treat the trans community equally and fairly. Like I said, there's a lot we could debate about, and there's a lot of disagreement within the trans community itself. But he wants to act of a person of integrity where he didn't really show the integrity when he wanted to go the ridicule route with a demographic that doesn't have a lot of, power. They're like 1.something% of the nation. And he had no problem going around conservative media, making a mockery of their newfound freedom because they're becoming more accepted. And of course, you're going to want to push your boundaries. If you identify yourself as a female, you're going to want to do what girls do. Am I saying it's right? Am I saying they have an unfair advantage? That deserves attention when it's a nuanced issue. But he went straight to ridiculing a demographic that's a minority, and that's very right-wing.
Based on all sorts of variable categories. But these premises date back to certain Judeo-Christian values and Enlightenment principles.
That's
And
like an oxymoron comment right there. The Judeo-Christian values. Let's go ahead and look at, he said, he referenced a time period in world history. The Enlightenment, the Renaissance. There were like humanitarian aspects of that, secularism, the denial of the Middle Ages, when there was a lot of religion ruling in that time. So, what brought us more freedoms and more civility were stepping away from religion. And I'm religious, I'm Catholic, but unlike people like Zuby who will want to push their ideology with force and cover it with flowery language, I lead by example. I'm pro-life, but I'm not going to go ahead and agree with the conservative justices that we have that are just dictating their ideology on something that's not popular. Most Americans agree that the women should have the right to choose. And people don't notice, but I'm in Texas, and depending how you word it, people are okay with abortions here in a conservative state as well. But you'll never have that kind of conversation with people like Zuby because they're slick ricks and they'll go ahead and push an ideology that's significantly more authoritarian. The guy's from Saudi Arabia. Isn't that like a red flag to you guys?
as society becomes more fractured and more secular, and people are getting
More
tribalized
secular.
and polarized in different directions.
Okay, secular nations that are developed are some of the freest countries in the world. And I'm not saying that to criticize my country. I want to recognize the flaws in the areas where we need to get better so we could be in the top 10, number one. We're not even in the top 10. So I'm going to go ahead and show you some data because he's going to go ahead and talk about this, about platitudes and trying to appeal to conservative audience, talking about like how great the United States is being free and all that, which is going to be a good closing statement. So let's go ahead and look at the data first really quick. Oh, sorry. Let's go ahead. I have that data here. Here it is. Boom. All right. So let me see if I can make that bigger. Yeah, I think I can. I hope I can. Oh, no, that's the Zuby video. I'm sorry. Well, I guess I can't make it bigger. Let me go ahead. Sorry. Let me go ahead. Get that. Oh, I know what I need to do. There we go. It'll work now. I'll make that bigger so you can see it. So you're probably wondering, right, what am I doing? Why are we looking at Christopher Columbus? Bear with me. It's all these advertisements. You know how it is. This is the World Population Review, and I really like looking at data, and I'm very big with data, especially in a holistic view in worldwide data. The Freedom Index of by country for 2022. Does Zuby do a quick Google research? No. But he'll try to make it look like left people like to talk to like-minded people, which I do not. That is not a characteristic of the left because we're very argumentative and we're very argumentative with ourselves. That's why we're not very organized, because we're too busy arguing about what's best for the country within ourselves. So, yeah, he's kind of lying about that. Okay, so here are the 12 categories of human freedom. And these are categories that are probably agreed upon through all the developed nations. Rule of law, security and safety, movement of religion, association, assembly, and civil society, expression of information, identity, which, Zuby's against, in relationships, size of government, legal system, and property rights, access to sound money, freedom to trade internationally, and regulation, which most conservatives are against regulations. I wish I saw healthcare in there. Did I say healthcare already? No, in expression and information. I think the United States, we're really good at that, but we can get better. And I think one thing that right wingers do is try to muddy the water with free speech. But before I go off on that, let's go ahead and look at the 10 countries with the highest human freedom index. The United States does not even make the top 10 list. I think we're in 15. And Zuby lives in England, and they have more freedom than we do, according to this data. And, Zuby's from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia doesn't even make the freedom index. So who's Zuby to dictate what freedom's about when he lies to your face by saying U.S. is the freest country in the world? And as you can see, the United Kingdom is above the United States. And, you imagine if you were to throw this data at Zuby's face, that would just get him to stop wanting to converse like he did in this conference when those kids were asking him some good questions. And I'll give you another example where he was just kind of fading away too. But yeah, Saudi Arabia, you're not going to find that on here. And he even references his Middle Eastern roots to like say how he has a good foundation. I forgot exactly what he was trying to emphasize. We'll see it. So bear with me. So let's go ahead and continue to watch this speech. I'm not trying to take digs at him and disrespect his fan base, but it's just like honest criticisms that I just don't feel he has an answer to.
There is a large risk of the entire thing coming apart and the entire
Fear
experiment
tactics.
failing, and that would be a catastrophe.
Nothing's going to fail.
So why is moral polarization so?
The reason I say that, there's a lot of people that our patriotism is to unite people, even if we disagree with them. I had a conversation with a centrist not too long ago, and he was like saying, well, everybody should be responsible, like the state should take care of their infrastructure. And I just brought it to his attention. I'm like, dude, we have poor states that rely on federal money. You can't really realistically expect them to take care of their infrastructure. They're going to need help from other countries. I mean, from other states. I apologize, I misspoke. So there's a lot of people, if you talk to them that way, they're going to understand. But our enemies are people like Zuby. They will not allow those conversations to happen. They're going to make their conservative audience, their centrist audience, look like left people are not reasonable. You saw that tweet. He's not very genuine. And that's why I'm making content to make sure that you guys can see that more obvious. You're like, yeah, I know this guy. I talked to this guy. He's willing to speak with me. Zuby's wrong.
So dangerous? I think the biggest reason is because there are only three ways that you can solve any conflict. Whether you are talking about an interpersonal relationship, you're talking about group dynamics, you're talking about a marriage, or you're talking about entire nations, there are only three ways to resolve any conflict. Number one is discussion. Discussion, debate,
he doesn't do that.
Diplomacy. If people are talking, then they are not fighting. Number two is separation. Segregation,
that's
divorce,
what he does.
You go this way, we go this way.
That's
we don't interact or
tactic.
Communicate with each other, and that's how we
I don't talk to leftists.
Number
We're
three.
more liberal than they are.
Number three is physical violence. Fights, wars.
Of course, we all want to
that's
stay
it.
away
If
from
you
that.
think about it, those are the only three ways that.
So you got to see examples with your own eyes. You know how Zuby is if you're his fan. Which tactics does he prefer? Does he prefer to talk to people in the trans community that are good faith? No. Does he want to separate them and ridicule them? Yes.
You can solve
I'm
any
not
conflict.
pro
So,
hardcore.
needless to say, I'm a big fan of
any movement that I don't know much about. I mean, I'm so ignorant on the LGBTQ communities, and I just know they deserve freedom. It's just simple. If there are people that obey the law, I'm not going to look for ways to ridicule somebody's freedom. That's just how I am, and that kind of makes me very libertarian. And respecting other people's rights, that's kind of a conservative trait, isn't it? And they're God's children. Some of them felt that way at a very young age, and that's God's will. So I can make an argument, a conservative one, to respect your fellow human.
Number one. I think it's important that we keep these communication channels open. I think it's important that people of different political and religious persuasions are able to communicate and talk with each other and have empathy and sympathy for each other's positions. And I think that when I look at the current climate, I'm seeing a lot of things to suggest that this is not the direction that things are necessarily trending in.
All right, well, let's go ahead and consider what he just said right there. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a little spiel on my thoughts of what makes conservatives or right-wingers who they are. They believe in hierarchy. It's very easy to prove. I mean, most of them are very religious. God, hierarchy. You can't get higher than God. Next, leaders like Donald Trump. They don't care if he does something wrong. He's the big boss man. And for a little bit, they were liking Elon Musk a lot. He's like, I've had conversations with people. It's like, yeah, he did wrong things. And these are conservative people that are more conservative than I am. It's like, but we still need to give him money. He's going to be able to solve all the world's problems. I'm like, man, you don't want to question this guy at all. That's just fascinating to me. And that was actually a conversation I had with a centrist. And it's just like that's a hierarchy. If you have value that's financial, if you have value that's your reputation, you're going to be seen as a person that you're not going to be questioned. Conservatives are notorious for being like that. If you are the man of the house, no one's going to question you. If you're the big brother, no one's going to question you. If you're the varsity quarterback that's getting all the cheerleaders, no one's going to question you. If you're the alpha, no one's going to question you. I mean, you've gained that spot in hierarchy, and that's a very conservative trait. And I say that through experience because, I grew up in a rural area, and I saw that every day, even with family members. You don't question people because that's disrespectful. An adult. I mean, there's good aspects of that I value, and I'm not saying it's bad, but it's just I'm explaining the characteristics of what makes the conservatives the way they are. Because if you don't question people, you're going to be able to be a Republican. It's like they don't question their leadership. They don't hold them accountable. They're very big ideologues. If you want to go ahead and poll the audience for Fox News, which already have been done, they are polled as one of the most uninformed news watching audience. So, and I see this online on my Facebook. I mean, I never see a right-wing conservative writing out with their own words their political takeaways or their views. They always send memes because that's a place of authority. They'll look at the military, a place of authority. If you win in a fight and you're a badass, you're going to go up the hierarchy in a conservative world. And that's how I felt like I was able to go up in the conservative hierarchy, being a wrestler. If you kick some people's butts, you're going to be respected more. And, like I said, it's something I grew up around and I'm used to it. And I do find value in that. I mean, there's some good aspects of being a conservative. And I'm not going to say it's full of hate because a lot of people will probably think, oh, conservatives are bigots and, they're hateful people. Well, they can be if you're not in their community, if you're not part of their hierarchy. Yeah, I think that is pretty relevant. And, me being in a small town in Brown, I was accepted in that hierarchy because I was one of them. I was able to have friends, have really great memories. But I would hear like, yeah, you're not like all those other Mexicans or anything. You're one of the good ones. I'm like, okay. And I'll give you a story of a crazy scenario of like how that love will exist for people that are minorities in conservative communities. There's this rancher. God bless his soul. He's already passed away. He was old when I knew him. His name was Kit. And he needed consistent help of ranching. He was getting older. His kids didn't want to help him. So he needed somebody to help him. And he was able to get a migrant worker from Mexico. And he kept him. He housed him. He took care of him. He's pretty much a low-paid indentured servant. And, but their relationship grew. And that Mexican that would be at his side anytime he would call, on call, whenever, that developed into a friendship that was more than a friendship, When Kit died, he left land to this, his Epifanio, and he left him land. He left him in his will. And it, that was just like, people don't know those kind of relationships exist in the South. And am I saying is it right? No, it's different, but there's a lot of acceptance, but you just have to be part of the hierarchy. So anyways, I know that was a little bit ramble, but if you're conservative, you probably might like, yeah, that's probably kind of true. So anyways, let's go ahead and continue with Zuby. I'm going to go ahead and skip to, because I think one of the conversations I had with one of my centrist buddies on Twitter was like, what's the difference between love of a conservative and a liberal? And I told him the love of a liberal or a left-leaning person is more inclusive. They're going to have love for more people. And the love of a conservative is more authoritarian. It's more full of hierarchy. You know your place. You don't question authority. And that's how my mama told me. That's my dad. I don't question my dad. You know what? You'll be able to have a conversation and challenge authority if you're more left-leaning. Now, I'm not saying one's better than the other, but it's helpful to recognize that. So let's go ahead and look at the next part. I'm just going to go ahead and skip over. All right, let's go ahead. And this is going to be his platitudes. I just labeled it platitudes.
When people say that this is the home of freedom of speech and the home
He's
of
talking
liberty,
about how free we are.
these are not just slogans and taglines and things that are nice to say. If you look around,
Yes, they are slogans and taglines. If you look at the data, we are not considered, even in the top 10, one of the freest countries in the world. And I don't say that as an insult. I say that as recognizing our flaws so we can do better. And I already know some right-wingers will be like, well, then get out. And I'll say, well, actually, if you're the one to get out, we probably would be a little bit better on that freedom index, because right-wing is a more of authoritarian views. And they like to make it look like people on the left are censoring, preventing their speech. Right-wing people don't know how the Constitution works. That's going to be pretty much on the business sector, which also has constitutional rights to protect their financial well-being, to protect the well-being of their employees. So they have to make decisions to protect their bottom line, and they have rights to do so. So if you're a company and you want to go ahead and make sure that your employees are able to be at work every day during a pandemic, God forbid if they get COVID, God forbid if they get sick, God forbid if they pass away, what's a thing that you can do to make sure you can limit your expenses and limit your human resources, your human capital? Not limit, I mean prevent it from going away. Misspoke there. I mean, what's going to be in your financial well-being and the well-being and the health well-being of your employees is to get vaccinated. And if you don't like that, you have the freedom to go somewhere else. And there was a lot of jobs that were marketing. We're like, we're not going to make you get a shot. And Joe Biden wasn't mandating it other than being federally involved. If you had a job that was with the federal government, I mean, even if you're in the military, you're going to get vaccines. So you have the freedom to not get the vaccine by going to get another job, or many jobs that I saw, they gave you the option to get tested regularly. If you were able, and I've taken the test, it's not that big of a deal. And I'm assuming some of the jobs that probably supplied you with the test, they supply you in mass. So there were so many ways to just be vigilant in a reasonable manner when a lot of things were unknown. But Zuby will trivialize all that and won't have an honest discussion about that. Now, me, where I personally stand, I was against mandates. I like the idea of having options. I like giving the right to people to make the right choice. But when you have so many people online that are divisive in a blatant direct way or an indirect way, like Zuby, he won't give you the facts. He won't be transparent. He won't talk to people that will challenge him. Like I said, showed you the evidence already. Let's go ahead and continue to hear what he has to say.
around the entire world, and you look at history, there's never been a country like this before. So it's very important.
There's never been a country like any other country. I mean,
what you
we're
have
all
here.
different in our own ways.
Another problem with moral polarization is that it is deranging.
Deranging.
It confuses people.
Confuses
You
people.
need to have something to orient yourself towards in the world. You need to know which way is up, which way is down, which way is east, which way is west, and so on. When things become inverted and people are saying that bad is good and good is bad and 1 + 1 = 3,
He's going to go to the right-winger's greatest hits here in a little bit, but it's not that confusing, dude. If you use patterns throughout our history, if you use data, I've already modeled that, and that's what my goal is to normalize conversation and to model how to just come up with some solutions. And to hear guys like this, I'm going to ask you, is that a good way to model a genuine way to find solutions? Or would it have been better to talk to someone like me?
things get very confusing.
Do they?
Now, I'm sure many of you have been puzzled, as I have, by complicated questions such as,
There's the right wing's greatest hits right here.
do women have penises? Do men give birth? What even is a man? What even is a woman?
Okay,
These are things.
He's asking some really ridiculous questions, and a lot of trans people will concede there is a biological sex and there's gender identifying factors. You have Blair White, which I've seen so many Trump supporters that are really conservative put political memes of her because they think she's hot and they don't know she's a transsexual. They don't know. I mean, if you're a right winger, if there's a passable trans woman, you're probably not going to know. And they'll most of them will probably concede of like, yeah, I'm a biological male, but I identify as a trans woman. And the same thing could be said about trans men. I'm a biological woman, but I identify as a trans man. It's just, he wants permission just to be an asshole. That's what Zuby wants. But he's doing it in a flowery language manner, and he doesn't want to be empathetic. He doesn't want you to accept other people. He doesn't want the you in united. Think about it. Saudi Arabian logic right there, if you ask me. They're not even on the Freedom Index. It's not me being generalizing that country.
You may get a range of different responses, whereas as recently as 10 years ago, everybody agreed on these things. This is what I'm saying with people no longer even believing in the same facts.
We agreed on things. What is he talking about? Obama did not agree with same-sex marriage. What is he talking about? He's just spewing out flowery language, Beto O'Rourke style. We're going to be honoring the generations of many our great heritage in the Constitution. I mean, that's how Beto talked when he was running for president. I was like, dear Lord, why didn't you just focus on Texas? But anyways, Zuby, I'm sorry, man. You're losing me. And I want to give you a chance.
Themselves. What about, we've been seeing over the last few years a lot of heated discussions about the concept of race. Now, when I was growing up, and I grew up in the Middle East, but I was taught that you do not judge people based on their skin color.
You judge people on many other factors where you're from, buddy. All right, let's not even have that conversation because he's going to bring CRT up toward the closing argument, and he's going to admit that he doesn't know jack. It's history and American history, so get that right. And CRT and all that is a college graduate course level curriculum. Are there crazies that talk about it probably when they're not supposed to talk about it? Of course. I mean, that could be said with people on the right too. I've literally heard people that are right-leaning saying they want to encourage kids to do their ideas, I mean, praying in school. I mean, that's not something that's going to be shared by everybody. And what else? I'll give you some specific examples. I had somebody say, you know what, I'm going to talk about our culture more. I'm like, all right, what are you going to talk about, buddy? I'm going to go ahead and tell people, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and talk about Halloween, man. Us Americans, when we celebrate Halloween, I was like, well, Halloween's not an American holiday. It didn't come from America. I mean, it was like in Ireland or somewhere and around that area. It was like a paganistic ritual that you would dress up so you would trick the dead evil spirits so you wouldn't. It was like a paganistic ritual that prevented you from being harmed by other demons or whatever. I don't know. I just know it wasn't part of the United States culture until we were marketing it to have people buy stuff. And same thing could be said about Christmas. The only thing American about Christmas is us perverting the Christian aspect of celebrating Jesus' birthday. I mean, we market it so we can buy gifts. So teach your kids that. So, it just, it's like, and I was like, yeah, the Christmas tree is German too, by the way, dude. And he's like, yeah, and that's the right winger's Achilles heel. When you know your history, when you know the Constitution, I mean, their hierarchy, and I think they will submit to that when you're going to be able to out-American them via your rhetoric. It works. I've seen it. I mean, I live in Texas, man. I mean, if you're like, remember the Alamo? I was like, I do remember the Alamo, man. We lost, and that's cool with me because I'm not like a sore loser like you Jan Sixers. But anyways, yeah, you can have fun. But anyways, let's go ahead and continue.
Judge them based on the content of their character.
All right, let's go ahead and skip over.
Treat each person as an individual.
He doesn't do that.
This is quite a radical concept that actually it took human beings thousands of years to work out. But this finally was.
All right, let's go
what a
ahead
woman
and see.
even is.
Fear tactics.
Now, I don't think that
think
if
he's
this
trying to
country is
claim
going
that
to hold
moral
together,
high ground.
we are able to deal with this type of moral polarization. But why has it even happened? I think it's happened because Western society is becoming increasingly unmoored from many of the values and beliefs and concepts that people used to share. Over the decades, the family structure has become more fractured.
The reason family structure has become fractured is due to economic factors. I mean, if you look at how the African American communities were, they were probably one of the most marketable demographic the further you go back after slavery, because they were the ones that knew how to do all the trade jobs. And they were able to build cities that were taken away, like Central Park. I don't remember the community that was built by African Americans there, but it was confiscated by the government, and now it's Central Park. And in Tulsa, in Oklahoma, there was Black Wall Street. So they did build a good family dynamic, and that's the history that we need to really remember. And when you took that family dynamic through generations and denied the ability to build back the family, now they want to talk about, well, urban areas, they lack a father. I'm like, well, that's years and generations of you just destroying the progress that was made by that specific demographic. So Zuby wants you to forget that. He wants you to just think of it as victimhood. No, it's history, buddy.
From a host of different reasons.
And also, I don't want to take away from the poverty that's within the white community. There's a lot of poverty in Mississippi, and it's not just all African Americans. And I want you to see that I'm genuine. I'm not just trying to push like an SJW talking point, but, you know, I had a conversation with a person that was a centrist, and they just, you know, nonchalantly said, well, yeah, infrastructure should probably, you know, we should think about it being taken care of by the states. I'm like, well, you're going to leave out all these poor red states that need federal aid to help, you know, with their education and other needs that they can't provide for themselves because all the human capital is left, and they still need the help from us liberals because we're inclusive. We even care for people that are in red states.
Also, what has happened is people have become increasingly secular and less religious. And as that happens,
you're going to believe this from a guy from Saudi Arabia? I hope not. So anyways, and I'm not trying to sound divisive. Saudi Arabia is not on the World Freedom Index, okay? So that's a legit criticism. He spent a large part of his youth being raised with people with that ideology. Remember that. That is not American. 9/11. Where was most of the people from? Saudi Arabia. All right. I think there was 2 people from Egypt. So all you crowds just like to say, never forget there's some American history that will remind you. All right. And I'm not trying to put Zuby in that demographic, but he has the ideology. I'm making some objective, you know, specific points to discredit him, how he just tries to overplay his right-wing rhetoric. All right, so let's go ahead and skip to 1730. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get mad or trying to slander Zuby. I mean, I don't have the opportunity to talk to him. I would like to ask those questions to his face, but I can't. So I'm just going to make a case.
You can note these down if it helps, and you can take these with you, and they will help you.
Be courageous
now and in your future
He's
communications.
Giving you permission to play the victim card here.
Socio-political issues. The first recommendation is to be bold and to be courageous. I find that conservatives in particular, and I understand this because oftentimes you can be in a hostile climate, especially if you are at university or you're working in certain sectors, but to be bold and to be courageous.
Oh, bless your heart.
If you hide your views from people,
dude,
if you're afraid to say,
just speak your truth. You're not going to get canceled. I mean, that's what I tell people on Facebook. I'm like, why are you arguing about being canceled? If you write something, the likelihood of you getting canceled is slim to none. But if you pass memes that are going to be monitored by Facebook and all that, yeah, you're going to have that excuse to say, oh, they canceled me. I was like, no, you plagiarized something that was questionable, that was probably not even from our country. And they canceled that. They didn't cancel you. You didn't do the work. So what are you talking about? So if you want to be canceled, write something. And it's okay. I mean, if you see a conservative doing that, that's a good thing. If a right winger is like putting down something, as long as it's not, encouraging violence, but if they're trying to articulate why they think, always be kind, be nice, be a good example. That's part of the learning process. All right, so let's go ahead and you can take them out by the kneecaps to teach them American history after that. Just kidding. Be nice about it, though. That's my advice.
Similar to number one, but it's a little bit different. And this is to defend.
With words,
defend the
not
truth.
Physical.
Defend the truth. As I said
Defend
earlier, people are going to have different opinions on facts. But when something is objective fact,
platitude.
when something is objective reality, do not bend. Facts matter.
Authoritarians don't like to bend. And I'm very charitable when it comes to facts. There's different kinds of truth. There's two that I recognize. One is the empirical data that tells you the truth, that you can just see that's been reviewed by many statistics, many professionals, many studies, whatever. That's empirical data right there. I think that's something that most people can agree that are facts. Well, not when COVID came. I mean, sometimes those facts didn't matter to some people either. But another thing that could be factual are personal truths. For example, COVID, I could use that again as an example. There's some people that just didn't have a bad experience with COVID. I mean, my grandpa, I don't know how old he was when he got it. He was 96 and he got COVID, and I'm pretty sure he was vaccinated, but still, he was fine. After that, my whole family got COVID. I got COVID, my two daughters got COVID, and my wife got it, and we're fine. But, I could speak from experience that we did get sick. I mean, I didn't really get that sick. I mean, that's my personal truth. But my wife really was scared, and she had some symptoms that she had never experienced before. But that's her truth. And, in the truth that we also need to recognize, I'll give you two extreme goofy examples. Well, just one extreme goofy example and another one that's, it's goofy too. Because I live in a red state, and we have a red state governor, Abbott, and when we were doing what we needed to do to fight the pandemic, Abbott was like, "Oh man, we need to get some federal aid," and so he got some money from Biden to help with the infrastructure, the medical infrastructure here in Texas, because we were having a shortage of nurses because they were getting sick too, and then we were running out of spaces in our hospital, so we needed to accommodate all the people getting COVID. So that was an expense, and that was a consequence of people that were not being vigilant and doing their part to help. I mean, if you're one of those people that didn't get affected by COVID, I think you're just probably, like, that didn't matter to you, or you're just oblivious to that. But that is true, and you shouldn't object to that either. And like, for the same reason, people should respect your truth. But when you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia, when Georgia requested for federal aid from big boy Biden, Biden went to do what a good leader does to help Georgia that was requesting for his aid. And when he went down there, you had Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, "Oh, Biden's going to come down here and get you to take the vaccine and ask you a lot of questions. But us here in Georgia, we really believe in the Second Amendment." What? I mean, what kind of Southern hospitality is that? You requesting for help and somebody's going to lend you a helping hand, and you got some wackadoos performing that kind of jackassery. Zuby's never going to be transparent with that. Never.
So always defend the truth.
Defend the truth.
Number 4.
He doesn't even want to engage with the truth. I'm going to tell you that much. So let's go ahead and not just hear more of his idealistic principles because they're platitudes. He's not a man of action. He's making excuses in that tweet that I gave you. All right, let's go ahead and go to the closing arguments. And this is what gives me the most hope in our country, our youth. I don't even care if they're conservatives. They're very intelligent. All these older generations that just want to flex on the younger kids now. Most of you guys don't even know how to work your Netflix account. I mean, it's like, yeah, whoop-de-doo, you can drive a standard. I can too, but it's not, I'm going to brag to some 20-year-olds like, "Oh, you can't drive a standard. Yeah, you eat those Tide pills." I'm like, I know some of you guys have done some pretty dumb stuff, so you shouldn't be talking. Just put it that way. I'm like, come on, man. Don't be dogging on younger Americans. That's not very patriotic. I mean, if you're related to them, I guess you own that right, but that's on you, Dan. All right, let's go ahead and hear these questions. This is what gives me hope.
Really go bad. So I would encourage leaders of faith to put your...
Here we go.
Our values and our constitutional freedoms and rights, and that's what sets us up from like the rest of the world. And I'm sure that a lot of us here, when we hear of atrocities overseas, mass genocides, crimes against humanity, we always say, "Oh, that would never happen here," right? But there's these when you consider
Zuby only takes
critical
two
race
questions.
theory
That's all he can
and
handle.
gender theory, which pretty much is kind of like dividing us and whatnot. And you have a unique perspective, being a foreign national.
I would like to do pretty much all of this kind of
I'd like to know
talking
how
about
you would define
given the
critical
opportunity to give
race
a
theory
speech.
and where else in the world we would see this, and it just goes by a different name.
Sure. So I'm not an expert on the origin and history.
He sure is not the expert in American history, so he doesn't need to really have an opinion to try to push a right-wing ideology on us that doesn't unite us. So that's where I have a strong stance against Zuby, because he's not the expert, but he wants to dress like he is the expert. He's a big poser, in my opinion. And congratulations to that young man going to ask a question that was so articulate, and just, you can see he looks like, ooh. And he'll give you those zinger words, Marxist and all that. He needs to talk to a professor, and I'm pretty sure there's some really good professors that could probably hang with him, but he doesn't have those people on his show. All right, let's go ahead and look at the very last question, the next one. There was only two of them, which is sad on Zuby's part. Like I had said, I would have loved to have like an engaging... just the students take part in the conversation, not just hear me talk. What an ego, right? What an ego. Take part in the conversation too. We all learn together. All right, there it is. I believe it's 35 minutes. Sorry. There we go. This guy's awesome, and he's a Alabama boy.
One last question.
Okay.
I'm Christian Calvert from the University of Alabama. So earlier you were talking about America being the bastion of freedom. I've heard a lot of Europeans be very critical of the way that we do things in the
This
United States.
resonates with my
I've even seen many
Twitter
claim
experience.
that Europe is in a lot of ways freer than the United States is.
I just showed you the data.
And so I was wondering why you think many Europeans are so critical of the U.S., and also if there's any sort of validity to them saying that Europe is largely freer than the United States.
Wow, that's a complicated question, actually, but it's a good one.
It isn't a complicated question, Zuby. All you have to do is a quick Google search. So that's why I feel Zuby's just full of crap. I say that in an objective manner. I've showed you the data. It's not like I didn't come with receipts. And, I think he might be somebody that's just, a decent business guy that's interested in his bottom line. He wants to sell you merch, man. He wants you to really think highly of him. He doesn't want to insult people. He doesn't want to step on anyone's toes unless you're trans, because that's his market. He wants to sound like he's a decent dude, but decent people that push division, rather it be directly or indirectly, need to be challenged, and they need to be held accountable. And unfortunately, Zuby doesn't put himself in a situation where that is the case. So that's pretty much it for today, and I just wanted to go ahead and say, hey, if you're a fan of Zuby, I still love you, man. It's no hard feelings. It's all good. And I want to go ahead and remind you that I'm going to have a political panel. And if you're interested and available from August 3rd to the 6th, we can make it happen. Topics of discussion: making a good argument, addressing toxic online behavior, or to be announced. You could suggest a topic that you would like to discuss. And I've been going crazy on Twitter so I can give you content to criticize. Very strategic. It was all intentional. Was it civil? Yeah, I mean, I didn't go crazy, but I'm well versed in verbal judo. If I need to be pushed, I can sling some mud too. So it's just like, I have no issue with that. But I do try to push a civil perspective. So you're going to see more of that than me just going in and fighting. But just know that you're invited. So I don't care if you're a right-winger. I don't care if you're a centrist. I don't care if you're a non-electoral lefty. As long as you come with facts and sincerity and good faith, you're going to be welcome. And it's okay if you have passion. I'm not going to try to censor you, but don't say anything that will get me fired, all right? All right. That's something I could ask. I think that's fair. But hey, whatever time it is, good day, good night, and see you some other time. Have a good one.